to Lynn's Recipes. Today I'm going to make brownies. This is a recipe that the Barefoot Contessa made, and it's my family's favorite recipe. It makes a whole lot, so it takes a whole lot of ingredients. So let's get started and show you what it takes to make this recipe. You'll need a pound of butter, and I use the unsalted butter. You'll need a pound plus 12 ounces of semisweet chocolate chips. You'll need 6 ounces of bittersweet chocolate, and this is actually 8 ounces, so I'm going to use one and then half of another one. You'll need 6 extra large eggs, 3 tablespoons of instant coffee granules, 2 tablespoons of vanilla, a cup and a quarter of granulated sugar. You'll need a tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and a cup and a quarter of all-purpose flour. You're also going to need one of these cookie sheets with sides, and you'll need to spray it. And I've actually sprayed mine with cooking spray that has flour in it. Okay, so what I've done is I've put my 4 sticks of butter, which equals the pound, on top of my semi-sweet chocolate chips, and we've broken up the bittersweet chocolate, and I'm going to take it over to the stove, put it over a pan of boiling water, and melt it all together. Okay, so I've put some water in the bottom of this pot, and it's simmering, and I'm going to set my glass bowl over the pot, and that's going to act as a double boiler. What you want to be sure that you don't do is put so much water in here that it touches the bowl. So we're just going to let this simmer until it all melts together and is smooth. Okay, it's starting to melt. You can see the chocolate's really melting, and now we're pretty much waiting for the butter to melt and incorporate into it. You have to be really careful. This gets really hot, so make sure you don't burn yourself if you're using this type of double boiler. Okay, our chocolates and butter are all melted together. This took about 10 to 15 minutes to get it this smooth. So now we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so this mixture is going to have to cool for a few minutes before we put it in with our eggs to keep the hot chocolate from cooking our eggs. So while it's cooling here for a few minutes, I'm going to move on to the next step. So I have my 6 eggs in the bowl, and I'm going to pour my sugar in, my coffee granules, and my vanilla. And I'm just going to stir this with a spoon. Don't whisk it, you just need to use a spoon. Okay, so this is stirred together pretty well. So I'm going to wait just a few more minutes for my chocolate to cool off just a little bit more before we incorporate our chocolate into this mixture. So my chocolate is cooled a bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate into the egg mixture. And I'm just going to take a couple of spoonfuls at a time to begin with, so I can heat up the eggs a little bit so they don't cook. So we'll do that. And then stir a little bit to kind of make them the same temperature. And then I can go ahead and pour the rest in. So I'm going to stir this all together. As you can see, these brownies are really chocolatey, if that's a word, and delicious. Okay, I'm going to set that aside for a minute, and I'm going to move on to the next part. So the next part of this is sifting my cup of all-purpose flour, my salt, and my baking powder. Just so we don't have any lumps in the batter. And now it's time to pour the chocolate into the flour mixture. You don't really use a lot of flour when you make brownies. just going to stir this. Get it all mixed together. Okay, so this is mixed together. You don't want to overmix brownies, but I think that's pretty good right there. So our next step to this recipe is to take our 12 ounces of chocolate chips and pour them in a bowl. And at this point, I want to tell you that the recipe does call for 3 cups of chopped walnuts. I don't put those in my recipe because my family prefers not to have them in, but that's an option that you can do if you prefer. You can use pecans or whatever kind of nuts that your family likes. Also, we're going to mix this with a 1/4 cup of flour and stir the flour around the pecans. Now, the reason that this is done is to keep the chocolate chips and nuts, which you would also put in here and coat with the flour if you were using them, from sinking to the bottom of our baking dish, and they will be evenly distributed throughout the batter as they cook. Sometimes when you're making other baked goods with berries and things, you also toss them with flour, like muffins or whatever, to keep them from floating to the bottom or sinking to the bottom. So now I'm going to pour these in here, and I'm going to stir and mix them evenly throughout the batter. Okay, so everything is well mixed together. So now it's time to bake. I have preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and now I'm going to pour this into my baking sheet. As you can see, it's a lot of batter. Get it all in there. Now I'm going to take my spatula and just spread it evenly. Okay. I'm going to put this in my oven at 350 degrees. Like I said before, I had preheated my oven, and it's going to go in for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I'm going to open the oven up, and I'm going to kind of drop it or wrap it on the shelf. In case there's any air between the brownie and the pan, it'll get rid of it. And then we'll continue to bake it for another 15 minutes after that. Okay, so our brownies have been in the oven for 20 minutes, and now what I'm going to do is just kind of go like that, and that'll get rid of any of the air that's between the brownie and the pan. And then we're going to close it back up and set the timer for 15 minutes. Our brownies are done. They baked for another 15 minutes, and this is what they look like right out of the oven. And I have taken my little cake tester, and it's come out clean, so I know they're done. So now what I'm going to do is let them sit on the counter and cool completely. Our brownies are all cooled, and now I want to cut one and put it on a plate and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to try to get this one out of the corner. And here it is, my family's favorite brownie recipe. I hope you enjoy it.